Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. I want to welcome to the program Mark Bankston, litigator at Farrar and Ball, out of Texas. And Mark, welcome to the program. We were just saying beforehand, we were supposed to do. I was going to interview you about the Alex Jones case. I guess a year ago, maybe it was, or I can't remember. Right. In Vegas, and we'll catch up again at the Mass Torts Conference later. But in the meantime, you have a case that you are handling for a guy named Ben Brody. Tell us who Ben Brody is, and welcome to the program.
Thanks. Great to be here. Today we filed a lawsuit on behalf of Ben Brody. He's a young man out in California, a recent grad of UC Riverside, who's just sort of minding his own business in life. And turned out one night he was sitting at a Dodgers game and his phone starts blowing up because it turns out that Elon Musk had connected him to an accusation that he was a neo-Nazi rioter up in Portland. And it was a strange event for this young man, to say the least. Elon had seen some posts that were circulating around where apparently somebody thought that Ben Brody looked like one of the unmasked neo-Nazis up in Portland. It started a big, conspiracy theory online. Musk has been really into this psyops false flag stuff. He jumped on it with both feet, started promoting it for days. Then on the third day it was going around, he responded to the infamous Zero Hedge and defamed Ben, said, yeah, it looks like it's this kid. Looks like he's the one. And, a lot of people who had seen the rumor up until that point, it sort of transformed it into gospel for them. And it led to, as I think you can imagine, when Elon Musk calls attention to you, a large wave of very belligerent strangers.
I don't need to imagine. I don't need to imagine. I mean, I'm not trying to, because when I was on the Tim Pool show, Tim Pool accused me of being a pedophile without any real evidence to any evidence to back that up. Jesus, why am I trying to be generous?
Trying to get lawyerly here.
And Elon Musk responded, but at least, I have a platform and the ability to speak out about some of this stuff. I mean, you're doing this on behalf of your plaintiff, who is just a random guy, basically, just a young kid.
Absolutely. That's what I'm really making sure of is Ben's terrified right now about what his future may be, because employers may not want to hire somebody who has this neo-Nazi controversy in their past. They may want to hire somebody with an unblemished personal history.
All right, let me just clarify something. Mm-hmm. Let me just clarify something. So some random person on Twitter was trying to identify who the neo-Nazis were. Correct. They probably took an image of the picture of this person in there and ran it through maybe who knows what to assess that it was your client who was states away at a ball game, I guess, or whenever it was. And because the idea was, it doesn't make sense that this guy is a neo-Nazi. He's some Jewish guy in California. What's he doing up here if he's a neo-Nazi? And so Musk bought into, if not developed the theory, then this must be a psyop, because this guy's so clearly not a neo-Nazi, but it's so definitely him that, like, he's making two leaps of assumptions and then sort of retconning that to make it like to justify why he's doing this. This wasn't a casual thing that Musk is doing. He really sort of like is building this thing.
Well, and it's interesting that if you look at where the allegation came from, which is one of these extremist Groyper Nick Fuentes followers who had posted a screenshot from Ben's his Jewish fraternity, where it had said, Ben after graduation plans to work for the government. And they were all like, aha, we got him. He's a Fed. He's some sort of provocateur. And then once this spread around, it was kind of confined to sort of far right-wing circles. But then once Musk picked it up, well, then it becomes a totally different thing. And when you have that many followers, when you can get it in front of that many eyes, when you're that influential, the exponential effects are just incredible. Somebody who hasn't lived through it just doesn't know what it's like. And he just picked it up and ran with it, basically running the same theme that he had for the Allen shooting in Texas back in May, where he was denying that guy was a neo-Nazi. Mm-hmm. It seems to be this running theme that this promotion of the idea that there are psyops or false flags used to trick the American public into believing that there's white supremacist violence. And that's the theme that he's been carrying forward with this.
What do you have to prove in this? Like, what exactly is the what is the suit here? Is it a defamation type suit? Is it tell us what the actual claim is?
Sure. It's a libel suit, a defamation suit. And in this case, it would be actually per se, because it essentially accuses Ben of criminal conduct, of doing disorderly conduct, of conspiracy to riot, conspiracy to commit political terrorism. And in that kind of case, you have to prove four things. You have to prove that he published a statement. Second, you have to prove that it was of or concerning Ben Brody. In other words, that people who read it understood that it referred to Ben Brody. Third, you have to prove that it was defamatory, right? That it gave a false statement that injures his reputation. And finally, you have to show that he suffered damages. And in this case, it's damage to his reputation, his public image, as well as the mental anguish and distress it's caused him. So those four elements in this case are, honestly, a slam dunk. This case is pretty textbook, what you're not supposed to do. When Elon says, hey, it looks like it's this college student who wants to join the government, when he's communicating that idea, that's not an opinion. That's a statement of fact that can be verified as true or false. When he says that kind of statement, he needs to exercise reasonable care. And here, it's not reasonable care to take some extremist groyper and take his post and then throw it out to the world because you think these two guys look alike. That is not reasonable conduct. Even if Ben was a public figure, I would argue that this is absolutely malicious. But here, he's a private guy. When you're going to say things about private people, you have to use reasonable care if you're going to make this kind of accusation. And that did not happen here.
How much did the Ray Epps suit have an influence you in this way? And the fact that that Fox News is in some trouble here for doing something similar to Ray Epps?
I think what it shows is that there is a new type, a new pursuit of lawsuits that I hope to think that I had some influence on that back in 2018 by suing Alex Jones for his false statements. And we've seen a wave of them. We saw Rudy Giuliani sued by the poll workers. We've seen Ray Epps. These are a continuing type of suit now that people are starting to understand that this has real importance and meaning beyond just the damage it does to the people, but in terms of a healthy public discussion. And so, the Ray Epps suit is very similar to this one in a lot of ways, where you have someone being accused of being a provocateur, of lying about who they are to somehow affect our politics. And that type of defamation, unfortunately, has grown way, way too common. There are far too many powerful people who are being reckless in their statements about private individuals while trying to essentially push their political agenda.
Okay, so let me go through some of that. What is the cutoff? If this happened to a public figure, now, I've never heard of Ben Brody before, and I don't know that really anybody had. Broadly speaking, obviously. But what constitutes a public figure in this instance, and how is that in other cases a mitigating factor?
Sure, there are two types of public figures. There's one as a general purpose public figure. Elon Musk is an example of that. Think of anybody who you can think of as a household name, right? Major celebrities, major actors, major public elected officials. There's also a second type of public figure known as a limited purpose public figure. And this is somebody who has thrust themselves into the midst of a controversy in an attempt to affect its outcome. If you're either one of those kind of people, we view under the First Amendment that you get breathing space. You are allowed to engage in topics of discussion about these individuals, and you can't have a defamation case unless you acted maliciously. And that means that you recklessly disregarded the truth or that you knew it was false. But when it comes to a private person, the standard of care is mere negligence, which means that a person has to act as a reasonably ordinary, prudent person would. And if you don't act with the reasonable care, sort of a C student average, if you fall below that, then you can be liable for the things that you say that are false. Because we recognize in this country, there is no content or value to false speech. False speech only harms the marketplace of ideas. So if you did that recklessly, you have to pay for what you did.
And so what is if Elon Musk had just like retweeted it once, let's say, and it was like, that was really impetuous of me and I never corrected it. Would that have crossed the threshold of reckless?
There's some discussion about whether simply a retweet could ever be the basis of liability. I think there are some people who have attempted to argue that in court. I never would, right? I don't believe that a retweet is enough to establish defamation. Likewise, some of Elon's early statements about this were not defamatory. For instance, when he replies to a tweet with somebody who's spreading this rumor and he says, in typical Elon style, "Ooh, very concerning," right? That's not defamation either. What is required is some sort of statement that you're expressing a belief of something true and false. And in this case, it was clear to anybody who was reading it, it was because Elon had seen something elsewhere. He said the kid wants to work for the government. Obviously, he saw that somewhere. That wasn't contained in what he was responding to. So when you make an actual assertion yourself and you seem to have information that supports it and people read it that way, that's what makes it defamatory. It's not necessarily defamatory just to spread lies. It is defamatory, however, to make a careless or reckless false statement.
To contribute to it. And does and where does, like, for instance, if, I don't know, if, let's just say some random person said that, how is it different that Elon Musk, who has, 16 million followers? I don't know. How does that play into this suit? Is that a function of of proving the damages? Is that basically where it comes to, how much harm it does to you?
That's part of it, right? Is somebody with a reach like Musk is going to be able to do way more damage than somebody with 10 followers, right? That's clearly a part of it. But it also goes to what he should have been doing reasonably under that situation. For instance, if you're the New York Times and you're investigating a story, you have resources at your disposal. Where you are in your circumstances kind of defines what's reasonable for you. If you were just some private person, right, who had no ability to have any power or investigate anything, your standard might be lower in your circumstances for what you're saying. But Elon Musk is somebody who has every ability to be able to confirm whether this is true or false before he says it. And he also knows that if he does open his mouth, if he does say something to the world, it's going to be heard by almost the entire world. That has to weigh into your analysis about what you're saying to people. You'll know, for instance, that ever since the SEC settlement, where Musk tricked a bunch of investors with his tweets, part of that settlement requires that there is an internal securities lawyer who reviews everything that Musk tweets about Tesla. Right? Tesla has that protection now, that he doesn't end up messing something up with them. And it's not unreasonable to think that if Elon Musk is going to be making accusations against people on the internet, he has the ability to check that out or have somebody check it for him. There's no excuse for him to be making these kind of reckless accusations, considering who he is.
And he also, it seems to me, I don't know if there's a single human being on the planet who understands the ability of Twitter to destroy someone's life more than Elon Musk. He paid $46 billion for that machine, essentially. So he knows the power of Twitter probably more. You could prove that he knows the power of Twitter more than any other human being alive, it seems to me.
Absolutely. And one of the things that the lawsuit goes into great detail discussing is the fact that for, ever since he bought the platform and even before that, he has fostered this sense of disinformation on the platform. He has made it a haven for abuse. He has made it an incubating chamber for neo-Nazi extremism. And all of these things happened on a platform that he created. And he knew that that was monetizable. He understands that conspiracy type, this fodder that they throw around online, this produces views. This gets attention. And he knows that. There was a report from the CDHC where he had restored basically 20 accounts that had been banned. And between those 20 accounts, we're poised to make Twitter $20 million next year. And this sort of stuff is a place that he has incubated and made. And so it actually accelerates the damages. If he's going to, defame somebody on that platform, he's fully aware of what's going to happen. I mean, none of what happened to Ben in this case should be any surprise to anybody. And in fact, it's a function of what he is creating at that platform.
Does he have extra liability than, say, someone with, I don't know, let's say theoretically someone had the same followers that he does, but he's also, it's not just his follower reach. Like you say, he's constructing this machine to to amplify, not only based upon his ability to amplify, but he's constructed the machine to amplify these type of charges. Is he responsible for that as well? Like the actions he takes even beyond his writing it?
I certainly think all of those things are going to be relevant to his level of fault, whether he acted maliciously. And you have to remember, in this kind of suit, normally if I sued somebody who was saying something on Twitter, I might have to go through some very difficult third-party discovery to get anything from Twitter. But in this case, everything in Twitter's files is owned by Elon Musk, and he will be obligated to produce anything relevant in discovery. I think once we get into this case, we may soon discover that the rabbit hole goes very deep in terms of some of these issues.
So wait, on that point, do you anticipate the potential to find that either algorithmically or maybe even like just sort of structurally when he tweets something that they are amplified even more if they contain certain elements or if he does it? And that would certainly add to, I mean, that's like, you know what? Not only are we going to broadcast this on our news, but we're going to headline it, and we're going to do it on every episode, and we're going to put it in the right-hand corner of the newspaper or something.
Right. I mean, that sort of gets back to the idea that here you have the most followed person on Twitter, and he knows that. And I think when you get into this suit and you start doing discovery, I would imagine, I mean, I don't know, we're going to have to dig down there and find, but I would be surprised if nobody has attempted to warn Elon about this problem, about what's going on with his conduct online. I would have to think that exists. And at the same time, we seemed to have indications when he took over the platform that Twitter was taking steps to expand his reach, to highlight his tweets, to, essentially everybody who had him blocked was unblocked at one point. Like this was a thing to increase his presence and influence on the site, which is something he really didn't need, because that's the real unfortunate truth, is that, a guy like Elon Musk, some of his followers really take what he says as gospel. He might be, in my opinion, the most influential of all influencers. And so, yeah, that's really going to affect the analysis in this case. If
you find through discovery that his tweets are algorithmically boosted, which they appear to be, from my using of the site, not my claim, not yours. If you do find that, does that make your case stronger? Because that is also him operating as a somebody who's amplifying and broadcasting their speech on that site, and as the chief executive officer there, making their communications more amplified, and then also, despite that increased responsibility, both like in his title and then as it potentially is structured in the algorithm, is also making defamatory statements.
I think in any defamation case, to the extent that you can have evidence that the defendant intentionally put this into more spaces, got more eyeballs on it, was working to see more people, that's always going to affect your damages. And in this case, I think it's not only what Elon Musk has done himself and through his platform to expand his reach, but you have to remember that in addition to everybody who saw that tweet, who was a logged in Twitter user who saw that specific tweet, given the uniqueness of his celebrity, it was entirely predictable and foreseeable that countless individuals all across the internet was going to repeat and republish these allegations. And that was something that he absolutely could foresee when making these comments. So it's both of those things in tandem have caused this to have a much greater reach than organically the tweet itself would normally have.
Right. So what's happened with Ben Brody now? I mean, this...
it's tough because on some level, I want to tell you that his life is starting to get back to normal, right? But I'm not sure it ever will. The thing about Ben, and I'm sure, right now he's very reclusive, does not want any more light on him, as I'm sure you can imagine. Yeah. At some point, that light is going to come, though. And what I think the world is going to discover is that Ben is one of the sweetest young men I've ever met. He's so sensitive and such a caring person, and just generally soft. He's a gentle guy. And he doesn't hang out online. He doesn't know this world. And this all completely turned him and his family's life upside down. I mean, when you got neo-Nazis threatening your life because of something like this, they just didn't even know what to do. And, I was talking to Ben's mom the other night, And she was saying something about how, he's starting to try to get back in the swing of things. This is really throwing him off. Right as he's graduating and starting his career, right? But she has this worry that this has changed him forever, that he's not going to be quite the sweet, trusting. He's a little more cynical. This kind of light in space can really change a person. And I don't think Ben's ever going to be the same. And so what I'm committed more than anything is that I am not going to let this young man be known from here on out as being connected with this neo-Nazi incident. That's not what's going to happen. I'm going to make sure that he is known as the young man who stood up to Elon Musk.
I have known personally some people in sort of like a quasi public policy, I guess, who were called out by folks like Tucker Carlson and Bill O'Reilly, well, literally those people. And it took them, and they're adults. I mean, they're people in their 40s and 50s, and it took them years to get out from under this. And, everybody moves on. Nobody thinks about it, but it stays in their life. And then there's always like a certain percentage of those people who are convinced they're on some type of like mission because their guru has said this, and it becomes almost like their mission in life to in some way to fulfill what their guru had said for them. It really, I can't even imagine being in that situation. So what happens next? Like the suit is filed. Mm-hmm. Do you start pretrial motions? You start discovery? Just walk us through the timeline here.
Texas has an anti-SLAPP statute, which is anti-strategic lawsuit against public participation. Anytime you bring a suit that invokes the First Amendment, the defendant has a right to seek an early dismissal of that suit if the defendant believes the suit is frivolous. And if that motion is granted, the defendant can actually collect his attorney's fees against the person who brought the suit. That's exactly what Elon Musk's lawyers have said is going to happen. Elon did not want to discuss this, would not apologize, would not retract, won't even delete the tweets, right? And have said, if Ben even dares, if he files this lawsuit, we're going to seek to shift fees against him and come after this young man. That's what they say is going to happen. That's the exact same threat Alex Jones made against the Sandy Hook parents, and I wasn't scared of it then, and I'm not scared of it now. But what's going to happen is about 60 days from when the suit is served, I'm expecting to see some sort of motion to dismiss. We'll have to have a hearing on that, maybe some early discovery. That'll have to get ruled on. And then unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is Elon would probably appeal that. And just like in the Jones case, we would probably have a year to a year and a half where it would be up on appeal before it came back down for pretrial. So the next little bit, it's going to be a busy next couple of months, and we're going to have a major fight in the courthouse. And then who knows where it's going to go from there. Either it could go for appeal, or maybe he just goes on to trial. We don't know. But this next little bit's going to be busy. That's for sure.
Well, it's a fascinating case, and my heart goes out to that kid. I can't even imagine being in that situation. And I've been in situations that are not great, but to be completely blindsided by something like that is
insane.
And particularly, I can't even imagine, honestly.
Yeah.
Mark,
and I thought that when this was brought to the attention of Elon's people, I honestly did, that Elon would quickly apologize, retract the statements, and make amends and make this right. And that hasn't happened. And I don't know if there's one of two things. Either Elon's being callous and isn't going to apologize to this kid and is going to come after him for money, or two, Elon has not been adequately informed about what's going on here. And my hope is that once after this news breaks today, that he is going to do the right thing. He is going to apologize. He is going to retract, and he is going to make this right. But if he doesn't, we're ready to go all the way. That's for sure.
And frankly, he should also, what would be interesting is if he actually took a little more time in assessing his sources. But frankly, I'm skeptical that is not a feature as opposed to a bug in what he's doing. But well,
we'll see. I mean, either this is going to be a learning moment or it's going to be a very big fight.
Mark Bankston, litigator at Farrar and Ball. Thank you so much for coming on. And we may have some other cases to talk about in the next couple of weeks. We'll see you at that Mass Torts Conference.
Absolutely.
We'll
I got a
finally
few
meet.
interesting things in the pipeline, so we'll be talking soon.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.